Thanks for tuning in to another edition of the Business of Fun podcast. My guest today is Scott Friedman. He is the man behind Scott's Takes, Hot Takes, and we wanted to talk about a whole bunch of stuff that's going on right now. Mainly, I just wanted to have Scott on because I'm really proud of the work and the consistency he's taken in doing Scott's Takes. Make sure you check out Booking Protect. I just got word yesterday that a new Booking Protect partner turned on the Booking Protect plugin with Audience View and made $16,000 in new revenue in their first week. So check them out, bookingprotect.com. Activity Stream has a brand new American office. I was probably the first person outside the organization to know. And so now we can start talking about some of the really cool stuff that we have planned for the fall. So check them out, activitystream.com, and check out the Activate email marketing platform. It is going to help you communicate now with your customers. And if you're interested, check out the NPS worksheet, Net Promoter Score worksheet I created with my partners at Eventellect. Understand what Net Promoter Score is, understand how to do a survey for yourself, and understand why it is an incredible metric. Send me an email, dave@davewakeman.com. And if you don't already, make sure you sign up for the Talking Tickets newsletter. You can get that at talkingtickets.substack.com or by sending me an email, dave@davewakeman.com. So back to Scott. We talked about a bunch of stuff. Scott is like me. He's been on the primary side, the secondary side. He talks a lot about ecosystems and having a healthy ecosystem. He produces 3 videos a week, which is far beyond anything I would consider doing. He's incredible about doing it. He always finds like a weird and funny angle on things, like to make the videos interesting, right? Like he was out like doing the thing at like 4 a.m. one time. So a lot of fun. We talk about tickets. We talk about sports biz. We talk about season ticket holders. We talk about what his beef is with the Mets and Steve Cohen. We talk about the mindset of the consumers and marketing orientation. We talk about lower prices, higher prices, aligning our goals between partners and primary side content producers. Then we do a round of hot takes. I mean, this is a pretty strong episode. So without anything else from me, check out my conversation with Scott Friedman on the Business of Fun. I want to welcome Scott Friedman from Scott Takes to the Business of Fun podcast. Scott, give me some hot takes, bro. What's up, man?
Dave, appreciate you having me on. And lots of hot takes as of late. If you follow me on Twitter and my YouTube videos the last few weeks, one of my biggest hot takes was Stephen Cohen, owner of the New York Mets, undercutting his season ticket holders, and obviously having a horrific ticketing ecosystem across the board, having $6 tickets, undercutting the season ticket holders. And we're not even going to get into all the other dysfunction going on within his organization of on the field and calling out his hitters and the players calling out the fans. It's just an absolute train wreck to be a part of the New York Mets organization lately.
You know what, though? As a Mets fan, it's still better than when the Wilpons own the team. So it's still a positive, man. And I have to say that at the jump, I like the way you work in the plug for Scott's Take at the very top. That's something I have got to learn from because, I'm so proud of what you've been doing with Scott's Take. And the plug at the start is really like bonus, man. That was awesome. Nicely done.
Oh, thank you. I'm getting better and better. And just like creating content, 3 days a week and obviously 7 days a week on Twitter, Facebook, really trying to get my name out there and really put out the best content possible, really between like 2 verticals, obviously sports biz, my bread and butter ticketing, obviously my keep it lean and clean, healthy lifestyle the last 4 months, and obviously becoming a glorified, journalist the last few days of covering the Jake Paul fight this past weekend in Cleveland and working with folks such as yourself to really hype it up and get content for everybody, not just sports biz, not just healthy lifestyle, but encompass it into a full menu of awesome content that there's something for everybody to watch.
Well, I appreciate it, and thank you for the T-shirt because I try to keep it lean and clean as much as possible. So I appreciate that.
You got it.
Oh yeah. So this has been cool. So you have like evolved. So now you are an official journalist. Is that, or an unofficial official journalist? Is that what happened when you went to the Jake Paul fight?
Yeah. So I became an unofficial official journalist when I went to the Jake Paul fight. So Yeah, crazy story. So I got text messages all weekend from my brother, from my friends, from my producers. Like, you're not even covering the hottest event in Cleveland, Ohio, like the hottest boxing fight in Cleveland, Ohio, since like Muhammad Ali fought at the Richfield Coliseum in 1975. So I literally went on, bought a ticket. I literally snuck into press row, acted official, and just started plugging content, plugging vlogs, and really covered that Jake Paul fight. And I really thought it was very well done. As you know, that I'm very fond of Barstool Sports and what Dave Portnoy is doing on the business side. I mean, many people think he's a a-hole and he has some controversial stuff, but he's just on absolute fire. And just to have Showtime, have him partner with Showtime, obviously promote his Barstool Sportsbook, obviously help sell pay-per-views for the fight, was very well done. And I was actually extremely impressed of Barstool himself, and really kind of going and really marketing to the younger demographic. I mean, it was a very young crowd there. They ended up selling it out. They did a fire sale for $25 tickets to sell it out, but it still turned out to be a very well executed event, in my opinion.
Very good. Now I know the story about how you ended up on press row too. You just snuck in, which
I was bold and snuck in, and I actually got kicked out right before the main event started. Once all the big time reporters came in, I was asked to leave since I did not have a credential.
It reminds me of the time when I was in college and I snuck into Pat Riley's first practice as the head coach of the Heat. And my buddy Cullen and we pretended to be student journalists for the school newspaper. And we got in, we were on TV, we were like there with the players and Pat Riley, the whole thing. It was amazing. It was like so great. We didn't get thrown out though, Scott. That was the difference. It was a simpler time though. It was a simpler time.
That was awesome.
So let me ask you this then, right? So we got a few things going down right now, and I wanted to have you on because we wanted to talk about Scott's Takes, which you were like going, oh, should I do this? And I was like going, you should definitely do this because I encourage anybody who's trying to do something to do it, right? Like if the inclination is to act right, so like you got up to 3 episodes a week, which is like way more than I can do, man. That's hard work. I mean, doing one a week is hard work.
It is.
So that's pretty good. And I really like the way that like the hot takes are timely. They come from a different point of view than maybe I would bring, or like a lot of people would bring because of your background, right? So you were in college athletics for a long time. Then you were on the secondary, and then you've been in the secondary market, right? I guess I was in the primary market and then the secondary market as well, but I come from a different angle because, my background is being a carnival barker in nightclubs at the start and like doing all kinds of crazy stuff. What's the philosophy behind Scott's Takes? Like, it's, for like the Business of Fun and like the Talking Tickets newsletter, I have a philosophy, right? And the philosophy is like, hey, look, people need to be more strategic. Marketing's the most valuable thing, for your business. Most of the time people are leaving money on the table. That's usually the philosophy that drives mine, and treating your customers well. What's your philosophy behind the stuff you're creating?
Yeah, great question. And I mean, most importantly, first of all, thank you for encouraging me to start it. And I've always wanted to put out thoughts and really be a great shooter, be authentic, and not worry about what other people thought of what I had to say. So, if you watch, Scott's Takes on YouTube, and there's almost 50 plus videos out there as of right now, and it encompasses everything. Like we said, sports biz, keeping it lean and clean, hot takes, me being a journalist. But going back to my bread and butter ticketing of working on the college side, working on the secondary side, I really was fortunate to work for amazing people for a short period of time. I say this, I had a cocktail with Patrick Ryan from Eventellect. I had a cocktail with Curtis Chang at DTI, two amazing visionaries in different ways in the secondary ecosystem. And what I've learned is that you need to have a healthy ecosystem in ticketing to not undercut your season ticket holders, not undercut your fans. And have a distribution strategy of not just having tickets all over the place, going down from 20 to 6, not having multiple brokers, having like 40 brokers, and seeing that market decay and trading consumers to buy $6 New York Met tickets per se, which is happening in New York right now, which I've been talking about. So really what I stress on that end, and that's the bread and butter of Scott's Takes, is that have a plan in place, hire the right people to blend your primary and secondary, and like you say all the time, Dave, protect your brand integrity. I mean, the last thing we want to do is train consumers to wait to buy tickets and have them able to buy tickets for $6. As it's great for the consumer, it's horrific for the rights holder, it's horrific for the organization to try to sell full price tickets, to try to sell season tickets when your ecosystem is just all over the place and you're just being undercut from broker to broker, fan to fan, and you're not given any leverage to sell full price tickets, whether your team is in high demand, low demand, etc. It kind of fits all realms of the possibility. And I just see a lot of teams, specifically in college football, specifically in Major League Baseball, that just don't look at that and just have horrific ticketing ecosystems over the last several years. And we're training fans to buy tickets last minute.
Well, let me push back on this thing a little bit too, and it probably in a way that I think you probably already expected. I'm gonna bring it to you, is that, you said that these cheap tickets are good for customers. And my argument would be that they actually aren't, because one of the key factors in pricing is the perception, and it's post-price perception that matters the most. And it's, does somebody feel like they got a good deal or not? In the moment, they might think that $5 ticket is a great deal, but if they go to a game where it's a $5 ticket and they're the only people in their section, have they really come out of the other end better? And I would argue that no, they have not, and that's a reflection of how poor attendance is, right? There's this theory that gets thrown around rather religiously. I guess maybe not religiously even. It's like a cult-like devotion to the $6 ticket that you're talking about. And if I can just get people into the building, they're going to understand the value. Well, no, you've already started down a road that is going to end unsuccessfully, right? Because you've already taught people that the value there is relatively minor, right? So you already created an environment where the perception is of a throwaway event, right? Whereas opposed to like when I was a kid, right? I still remember the first time I went to a Yankee spring training game, or the first real live event I ever went to was the Hawks and the Bucks in like 1984, 85, something like this, at the Omni in Atlanta. Yeah, right, like old school. And how these things would they just like held such a huge importance in my head, right? And some of that's lost, right? Because like you said, you're training people to wait till the last minute. You're training people that it's not a magical event, that it's not special, unless for some crazy reason there's like this huge matchup which is outside of your control, which if you're in branding and marketing or strategy, number one, there's no such thing as a commodity, and number two, it's your job to enhance the perceived value of your product or service, which doesn't seem to happen. Now, maybe I'm wrong or maybe I'm right, but I'm curious to hear what your take is on that.
Yeah, you bring up a great point there. And that's the great beauty of tickets is, there's no perfect way to price tickets. Everyone's going to pay a different price. But when you get down to the pricing of like a floor, like I think you bring up a great point. When you see a $6 ticket on StubHub, as a consumer, you're going to say that event really isn't worth going to because it's a cheap quality event, and I may not be willing just to go to it since nobody cares. It's a $6 ticket. So you got to take the mindset of the consumer seeing that a $6 ticket on a StubHub or Vivid or whatever secondary site and saying like, you know what, this is kind of a cheap event. It doesn't seem like a lot of people are going. I'm not going to go because of that. And imagine if you just price that ticket instead at $20 as a floor, maybe that convinces the consumer's mind, at least would for me, that, oh, you know what, it's a $20 floor. This event seems better. I'm going to actually go to the event because it seemed to have higher perceived value for the brand. So, Dave, no, I think you hit the nail on the head there. You bring up a great point there that consumers seeing $6 tickets is saying like, yeah, you know what, this isn't really a hyped up event. It's easy to get into. I'm not going to go because of that. So you bring up a a great point there. And I definitely agree in some mindsets, seeing those $6 tickets, you know what? It's not worth going because it seems like there's a lot of empty seats. It's not going to be a great event, yada, yada, yada. So great point there. I mean, I really think, if I was running a team right now or any music venture, I would not let the floor go below $20. And I'm fine with eating the tickets. I'm fine not selling out. A lot of people might disagree with me, but you never should have a ticket advertised below the $20 price point, in my opinion.
Well, and that's an interesting way that you explain that because, see, I would say that you do whatever you want to, but it's got to fit into your strategy, right?
Right.
And the big key for me, you talked about seeing it through the eyes of your customer, is obviously that's something I preach all the time. I talk about market orientation constantly these days because you have to understand that you're not the person that defines the value of your event, your product, your service. It is the customer that defines the value. And so if they don't perceive a high enough value, you have to really, instead of going like, well, because this happens constantly. And I think, Scott, you've been on both sides of the equation. So you know that this, what I'm going to tell people is the absolute God's honest truth. Which is that like going, well, they just don't get it. These people are stupid. They don't understand what's going, like this, how awesome this is or whatever. It's not their job to understand. It's your job to show them how valuable it is. And that's a problem, right? So the key is you have to understand. You have to be willing to step back, right? The first basic, most essential step of marketing is step back and look at what your market wants, right? So in your example of never having less than a $20 floor, my thing would be like, I'm going to research and ask people what they like, really what they value and they need, because maybe a $20 ticket or a $10 ticket is perfectly fine but as long as I understand it through my strategy, what I'm trying to achieve, what I'm trying to do, so I'm not necessarily, because I know discounts are for dummies is kind of my thing. It's not necessarily that I'm telling you that you shouldn't, price really, really low. It depends. I was at a baseball game recently and they had like college tickets, right? Like, so with the college ID, you get them for like $9 tickets, something like that. But and it was great because it brought all these college kids into one section or two sections, right? And the per caps were tremendous because the kids still were paying full price for beer. So it really just depends on the strategy. But I do get your point, right? It's like you have to be conscious of your brand. You have to be conscious of your strategy. Yep. It has to be specific to you. It can't just be general. And I think that one of the things that comes through to me, and you tell me if I'm wrong here, when you're talking through everything you're talking about, is that these one-size-fits-all approaches to selling tickets, to running events, to creating these brands, everything, they don't work. Nothing's one-size-fits-all. Everything needs to be specific and kind of created specifically for your business. But maybe I'm wrong.
No, there's no one size fits all. And people used to ask me that all the time when I was working in the secondary with events like DTI, like what's the perfect way to do a ticketing ecosystem? Every market, every brand is different. There's strategic ways to do types of ticket distribution deals and marketing strategies for every market. So there's no one size fits all, but like you said, just really focus on the emphasis. Don't be afraid to fail, try different things, but just don't devalue your product. Don't have BOGO offers. Don't have $5 tickets advertised to the masses. As you say all the time, too, they've utilized the secondary, too, to obviously protect your brand, protect your primary, protect your season ticket holders, and do it in the right way. Ticket is extremely complex, extremely complicated, but too many teams just discount, and you're just training your fans to buy last minute. It's happening in Major League Baseball. It's happening in college football. It's happening in some of the other pro sports too. And it's just not a good ecosystem. And people may argue if the team's in high demand. I've seen markets in high demand for World Series, for ALDS, for NBA Finals, that the market's kind of flat because a team didn't have a distribution strategy. Check out my Brooklyn Nets hot cake from the James Harden viral stuff earlier this spring. You'll see why, too. It's just you got to come up with a plan. You cannot utilize discounts in a bad strategic way that's going to really train your consumers to wait for those deals for the future.
Here's the thing. that I say about discounts, right? And again, if you want to, I could create my own very own hot take video series about just discounts and pricing. There's no doubt about this. But if I see a team discounting, it means that it pretty much tells me they have a bad or no strategy.
Right.
Full stop. I mean, that's just what it says to me.
For
right?
sure.
Because, there's no harm in repricing, right? There's no harm in, changing your pricing structure. There is, there's no harm in doing research because you should be doing research on pricing. There is extreme hard in doing price-based discounts. Right, price-based promotions are the fastest way to destroy your brand. They are the fastest way to undercut your profits. Right, like I've seen research, and the research varies. The guy who taught me about pricing is a guy called Mark Ritson. He's probably the most famous marketing professor in the world. His research said every 1% in discount you did was 40% of your profit gone. I've seen other research just because people go, oh, that's too crazy. Okay, so then you want some more standardized. This 1% cuts out 10 to 12%. Right? It's dangerous. It's stupid. And it's a sign that there's no strategy there. I mean, it's absolutely the worst possible thing you can do for your business is heavily discounting, running price-based promotions, right? I mean, it's full stop. But before I go off on a pricing rant, I want to go back to this idea you brought up consistently today, which is ecosystem. And I've talked about ecosystem, and it's nice to hear somebody else talking about ecosystem because I don't think people always get it, right? They don't understand, because it's like a lot of words, right? Like strategy has become a buzzword, right? Or marketing has become a buzzword because nobody knows what the hell it means.
Right.
Give us your working definition for ecosystem.
So, I love to utilize the word ecosystem. I get criticized for using it too much, especially from my brother, Kevin, who actually is director of ticket sales for the New York Red Bulls currently. Really, what ecosystem means to me is just like a flat out area of just like how your distribution channels work. So it's really just blending the primary, blending the secondary, blending your marketing, just kind of encompassing everything within your marketing and sales strategy is what an ecosystem means to me. And really just being on the same page. I think it's so important. And for me, being in the corporate world, me working for teams, me working for secondaries, that all departments, specifically in sales and marketing, are on the same page. A lot of the time they aren't. A lot of the time they have different objectives. So just kind of encompassing an ecosystem of marketing, sales, tickets, all being on the same page, all having that same objective and goal to blend correctly, execute correctly, not obviously be afraid to fail and try different things. But that's how I utilize, or I see an ecosystem of just various departments working together, working consistently, working holistically, and obviously working healthy together to execute a great strategy in place.
Yeah, no, and I think that's a good jumping off point because, I asked it because let me blow some smoke up my own tuchus here real quick.
For sure.
Because during the pandemic, I took some classes at, and one of them, the joke, because I think I've told you this joke. I go, oh, I took this strategy courses so I could go like, what do Dave and Charles Darwin have in common? And that's like we both studied at Cambridge. But what I did study was corporate strategy, and the ecosystem thing really stuck to me. And to build off of what you talked about was that everybody's on the same page. It's not just internal, it's external. It's everybody working in a to me, this is my definition, which I hope builds off Scott's, is, it's an interconnected network of people, like internal and external, all that are creating value with each touch point, right? Nobody is detracting value. They're all adding value to the end consumer, to the end customer, right? Because if one person doesn't create value, then the whole ecosystem kind of falls down, exactly. And that's what it means. To me, that's what it means, which is, very, I think, additive to what you're talking about, because most of the time, like you're saying, the marketing, the sales teams, all these people are pulling in different directions. And it's unfortunate because then it causes a lot of poor decision making, right? And again, it's a sign of poor or no strategy. Or, you tell me.
No, absolutely, and just working on the team side for years, and obviously having the other scope of it on the secondary. I mean, massive adventures. So, I mean, I think the biggest debate, at least in my career, has been like, should we try to sell out and have lower ticket prices, or have flash sales, or obviously get more revenue. So, me working with on the IMG Learfield side of the business, obviously our objective as a company was to generate as much ticket revenue as possible. We didn't care about the units. We were all about the net revenue for a business and being judged on EBITDA of what we're bringing in on each property. As I worked at Bowling Green and University of Illinois doing that, but then an administrator on the college side, you're like, you know what, I'm not so worried about the revenue. I just want to move more tickets and discount, et cetera. So that was kind of like my most frustrating part at times of dealing with being the middleman, dealing with both IMG, dealing with both the administration side of coming up with plans to obviously make everyone happy. So really, in a nutshell, it's really just working together with your objective goals. A lot of people in college, obviously having worked in the college side for 7 years, rather comp tickets, rather put out fire sales because they want their recruits coming in seeing as packed of a house as possible, which I kind of found interesting, and not really worry about their ticketing ecosystem, which is a fair assessment, I guess. But I just couldn't stand that because I was always analytic. I'm always looking at the brand quality. I'm always looking at the discounts. And one of the things that pissed me off in the past when I was at University of Illinois, not throwing anybody under the bus, is obviously group sales were our bread and butter for football, is what we focused on most of the sales cycle throughout the 12-month calendar year, is that marketing put out a $5 fire sale for an XYZ game. Then we have group leaders calling us saying, like, why did I pay a $40 group ticket when I could have got these tickets for 15 or whatever it was at the time? So I just don't miss that side of the business. And if I ever jump back in working for a team, running ticket sales, being a VP of business operations, I would make sure that would never happen. We just all got to communicate holistically. We all got to be on the same page. And most importantly, we can't undercut our fans.
Yeah, and I think what I heard in your example that you just used to is that there is a extreme danger of not having aligned goals. And
exactly.
Actually, I mean, you don't even have to be very smart, because I'm not that smart, to be able to see like how that's playing out in real time if you pay attention to the world now, right? Because one of the things, we're still the pandemic's not an old age yet, so it's not close to dying. I mean, we're still going to be dealing with this, I think, for through the fall and the winter.
Right.
Hopefully, maybe this time next year we'll really have put this behind us. I hope so too. I'm not 100% certain, but one of the things I hoped was that people would take a chance to think through their strategies, be more strategic, be a little more thoughtful, a little more focused on making wise decisions. And
right.
And you're already seeing that. No, like actually, most of the time people just like completely were like going, I'm going to sit here, I'm going to do exactly what I've always done, and I'm going to just hope everything will go back to normal. And so you're seeing it is a really dangerous environment for a lot of properties right now, because what got you here won't get you to wherever you're going. And the stuff that worked in the past is not necessarily it's definitely not working now. Like there was a sugar rush of activity, but now that seemed to have subsided. And I don't necessarily know how people are going to adapt and recover. Which brings us to the idea that you were talking about with the Mets and Steve Cohen, right? Or the football ecosystem. From your point of view, right? You worked on both sides. You got hot takes, man. You're the king of hot takes now. I can't even touch you anymore with the hot takes. I'm a much more elder statesman now here. I'm a moderate even in these things. What's the first, if you were in charge, if you were king of tickets, if I gave you the crown, what would be the first thing you would try to do to help create a healthier ecosystem?
So first thing I do, and I guess I'm stealing my good friend Patrick Ryan's buzz, from this, but I love it. The first thing I would do if I took over an organization for tickets or president of business operations, whatever I was doing, was to get on a big whiteboard and I would map out our entire sales strategy across tickets, across marketing, obviously across sponsorships on that vertical side of it, and figure out a plan in place of how we're going to align and how we're going to encompass everything together. So going back to ticketing, my bread and butter is if I'm working for a professional team, if I'm VP of ticket sales for a National Football League team, I'm figuring out my season ticket holders, where are we selling season tickets, where are we selling group tickets, where are we selling premium tickets, how we're going to blend our primary and secondaries together, and go based on the data, go based on obviously the teams, and figure out a pricing strategy holistically that doesn't undercut anybody, that obviously helps us gain our bottom line revenue goals to get us there, and obviously have pricers full time, manage my secondary, hire a company like Eventellect to be a partner for many years to come with a ticket distribution strategy, negotiate a revenue share, and just lay everything out. My sales team's going to focus on selling these sections, these areas of the arena. This is where we're going to focus on moving the secondary and blending that with the primary, and just having an overall healthy ecosystem where we can obviously price on demands, on variable, and adjust that accordingly 24/7, 365 days a year. So that's where I think it needs to be. And I think a lot of professional teams are doing great work. Eventellect's doing great work in working with these teams, having their proprietary software that auto prices 24/7 and keeps engaged with the team by sending them the data, sending them the reports, and just flat out not undercutting everybody and having a healthy ecosystem that's good for anybody. I don't care what the demand is. I don't care if it's high. I don't care if it's low. I don't care if it's flat. We're just on the same page of aligning and hitting our objectives and our goals.
I mean, I preach strategy before tactics all the time, so you know how this goes. All right, so let's do this then. Let's get some Scott's hot takes, and I'll start out. I'll give you two.
Yeah.
That way I give you a chance to collect yourself since I'm springing this on you. But this is why they're hot takes, because you respond in the moment. Okay, so my first one is that the new approach from the federal government in the United States to antitrust enforcement is going to cause a restructuring of the ticket business, right? It's going to potentially stop some of the mergers and acquisitions that have happened, and potentially that they could come in and proactively break up some of these organizations to create a much more diffused ticketing ecosystem. Number one. Second, actually, I'm going to give you three. I'm going to go all in on the third.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I'm going to go three. Scott, you're going to get this. This is going to be great. So number two is that attendance won't rebound until 2024 at least. I am not at all bullish on. Bullish is the right way on attendance and people's ability to sell all these tickets. I've looked at the raw data on the economy. There's just like more availability than there are people who could potentially go. So I think the attendance is going to be a really, really a long-term problem, because it's going to take a long time for people to realize that, like, hey, maybe our strategies aren't working, or we can't make changes, or there's going to have to be an extended period of pain, I think, before people really like get their acts together. And then finally, I believe that before 2025, we're going to see at least one team in the United States have to declare bankruptcy.
Great hot take. So let's.
I don't even know if those are really going to be good. I just was like, well, let me think of some really good hot takes I can give you.
I love it. No, this is fantastic. And starting with the bureaucracy of like ticket restrictions and so forth. Obviously, it's been going on for some time. It just hasn't started. But I'm not very fond of the United States government. You don't see me talk a lot about politics on Scott's takes, because it's just really just against my realm. But really, in a nutshell, with all these restrictions and ecosystems, we've always already seen it with the Trade Desk lawsuit in the music industry about 3 years ago. It's going to continue to come, and there's going to be mergers, and obviously with StubHub and Viagogo, that merger, obviously it's a mess in a lot of ways. Obviously, horrific timing by Eric Filler of acquiring StubHub with COVID-19 hitting us, but all that stuff's always going to be around. It's always going to happen. It's just pure stupidity from the United States government doing it, because it's just like, it's more, they're losing tax dollars on them for restricting it, and just the revenue just doesn't make sense. So I think the U.S. government with ticketing just stay away from it. Let these rights holders, let these private owners do what they want to do to protect their ecosystems. And obviously most of them are private companies. You can argue that most universities are owned obviously by their state and by the state. So it gets a little bit more murky and twicky. But in my opinion, it's just flat out stupidity of what the U.S. government is doing with that. And just these teams are just going to have to deal with the adversity of the restrictions, the rules. And I think people are going to continue to need to fight the fight, like the Don Vaqueros of the world that really stand out, have a point, have the NATB just fight the stupid laws that are in place, because it's really not doing anybody a favor. So pure stupidity, but it's the world we live in. We have to fight through those adversities and fight through those realms. But pure stupidity on my end. I hope that the U.S. government lays off those stupid restrictions that are just like harming these companies, harming ticket brokers, harming the entire ticketing ecosystem by putting those laws into place. Number two.
So let me stop you up before you get to number two, because I want to. So you're making my prediction and your prediction aren't opposed to each other; they're different. Mm-hmm. Right.
Yes.
You're talking about like putting restrictions on the ability to sell tickets, and I'm talking about injecting competition in the market. Just so everybody's clear, we're not fighting each other here. We're like two sides of a different coin. Is that right?
Yeah, for sure. And I guess I'll cover that on a little bit more there on the competition with mergers. I don't believe in monopolies per se, but I give credit to like the big guys, the Jeff Bezos of the world, the Elon Musk in the world, that have just created amazing companies and are literally dominating the world. So if you talked to me a year ago, I would say no monopoly, no mergers, let it be fair for everybody. But in the world we live in, it's unfortunately a dog-eat-dog world, and the people that do the best, that grind the most, put out the best ideas, have the top business. So I'm not really opposed to mergers. It's obviously happened a lot. It's happened with IMG Learfield on the multimedia end of the business. They're kind of controlling the landscape of sponsorships, obviously big in the ticketing sector too. But I think if they can get it done and they have the best solution possible, I think that the U.S. government should say, you know what, they're doing things right. They're helping folks out. Let them have it. It's obviously a case-by-case situation, but I'm not opposed to, if somebody's doing a great job with it, to prevent these mergers from happening.
Okay, no, that's interesting. And I would take the I, of course, am an old school, like way old school in this. So I would tell people to pick up the book called Fulfillment. And it's about, how Amazon has come to dominate the economy. Mm-hmm. And I think that, like, if you read the book and you, instead of substituted, let's say, Amazon, which people are like, oh, Amazon's so great, so innovative, so whatever, and you put in Walmart or you put in some other less popular company, you would be like, oh, holy shit, let's break these people up. I am, number one, Catherine is a huge, like, big-time antitrust attorney. So, like, through osmosis, I get a lot of understanding of the pluses and minuses of antitrust law enforcement and competition and lack of competition. But I would just tell people, go check out, Fulfillment. Read the book and substitute, instead of Walmart for Amazon, or Ticketmaster, Live Nation for Amazon. And if you read through it without your Amazon hinted glasses on, and I think you would have a really like a much different view of Amazon and Jeff Bezos as a company and as a person. It was very very eye opening, and then the way I framed it to my thinking was I substituted other people for in there to say if other people were doing this that were not necessarily seen as innovative or thoughtful in this way, what would I think? And the thing is like I'd come away with a very negative view of their habits, right? Because again, don't pay their taxes, use their power to put small businesses out of business, right? Like in kind of nefarious ways. I mean, there's a lot of underhanded stuff, right? It's like if you can win, but if you win because you have an unfair advantage or something of that nature, I don't necessarily know if that's good for the customer, the economy, but it's probably good for the business and the shareholders.
Yeah, great point too. And you can definitely argue both sides of that vantage point of the pros and cons. But I mean, for me, before we move on to the number two, literally I do 100% of my shopping nowadays on Amazon. I find the best deals on Amazon compared to any of their competitors. So if I see that as a consumer, I'm going to buy everything on Amazon. And I price check on Amazon, Walmart, and 99.9% of the time I find it the cheapest on Amazon. They're able to figure out as a consumer, I'm going to buy on Amazon. But no, you bring up a good point.
Well, I'm not saying I don't buy everything off of Amazon either. I'm just saying that I can hold two thoughts in my head at one time.
Exactly. Again, it's affecting all business. So it's a great debate. It's a fantastic debate.
So number two then.
Yep. So, the COVID world we live in, Dave, it's absolutely devastating what happened. It's the ultimate worst thing that ever happened to the live event space for sure. It's going to take until at least 2024, God willing this ends sooner, for attendance to get back on track. I'm definitely think that's the case. We already see Broadway plays in New York with them starting after Labor Day way down in sales trajectory. That's obviously the older demographic that attends that shows. So folks are definitely hesitant, especially the baby boomer generation, of going back to live events full force. And it definitely created a setback, but there's no excuse of why that's you don't have a great ticket distribution strategy going back to that. But the world we live in, it's scary right now. The Delta variants, the cases are through the roof. I think we're in worse shape than we were a year ago with COVID, but we're kind of all living our normal lives for the most parts in most parts of the country right now. So it's definitely murky waters, and I think that definitely it affects live events. It definitely will, and I would say it definitely will be until after 2024 before we get COVID-19, before we get into a consistent lifestyle of not living in this pandemic world we live in.
That's fair. I think that's one where we kind of agree on. And
yeah.
And I would say, so that we don't sound like Debbie Downers here, on the flip side of this, right, is it is a great opportunity though for new artists, right, new performers.
It is.
Hamilton, right, is a good example of how something that was entirely unique and new came and it became a huge hit, right? So there's opportunity for stuff like that now, I hope, right? The other thing is it's a great opportunity to rethink how your strategy, your marketing, sales, everything you do, right? Because some of this stuff has been going on the same way since I got started back in the early 2000s with Broadway, right? Yep. And the final thing is it's a really great way to look at new ways to deliver value to your audience and your customers, right? Because if we've learned nothing is that creativity is your key strength. It is your secret weapon. And God forbid if Broadway and symphony orchestras and all these creative industries can't come up with creative ways to add value, what hope do the rest of us have?
For sure. And definitely shows like Hamilton, the biggest show on Broadway ever, is definitely struggling to sell tickets, and more than ever they need the Dave Waitmans of the world to figure out their ticket distribution marketing strategy, because it's they're not selling out. Their prices across Broadway, New York are extremely down, and they were at their all-time highs in Q1 of 2020. I saw that at a front row seat at DTI of really working a lot on that space, and it's a challenge. I'm personally a huge fan of Broadway. I actually rather attend a Broadway play than a sporting event, as crazy as that sounds. And I think that more than ever, those old school mindsets of most Broadway plays and the companies need to think outside the box and have a plan in place, because it's not going to be easy moving tickets for the next couple of years in Broadway.
Yeah, no, I would not have painted you as a bigger Broadway fan than other stuff, but that's good to know. Now I know.
Yeah.
There was a point in time where I had seen everything that was on Broadway. I haven't seen anything as late. I mean, there's nothing on Broadway now, but yeah, no, Broadway is a truly magical experience, and I don't necessarily think that it's always marketed. I mean, they do a great job. They make a lot of money, but I still think they could do a better job of marketing.
They could do a 200 times better job. I mean, especially with the New York shows, and you obviously have the tour shows. I mean, actually, Cleveland, Ohio, where I'm based at, has all the great plays that come in, have a great theater district. And I went to see a Choir of Men, a show off Broadway, and it was absolutely phenomenal. And nobody was there, and they just didn't market it. There was only 50 people on the seat, and it was a first class production. And I don't think COVID-19 is an excuse. I think they barely market it. Nobody knows it's in town. So just kind of going with ticket sales marketing 101 for some of these theater productions, they gotta get with the program. They gotta have a ticket distribution plan. They gotta have people in place of not just waiting to sell it. And that's the problem that I think Broadway has and these theaters have around the country, is that they just don't market, they don't sell, they don't have proactive salespeople, and they don't have a ticket distribution plan in place. They're just pricing the tickets like it's 1989.
I like that. That's a good hot take there, Scott.
Yeah,
that is a good one. That was an A+ hot take. So final hot take then. What do we got? Give me number 3.
So, number 3 was, remind me again, 2025 U.S.
Oh, somebody's going to declare bankruptcy. Yes. Well, you didn't have to. You could build off your own, man. You can take your own hot take here.
For sure.
Use mine? Come on.
For sure. I know, for sure. Well, I think that if I was a betting man, and I do like to gamble, as most of you guys know if you tune into Scott's Takes, that I would bet a large amount of money that a major professional sports team will file for bankruptcy before 2025. I think that there's just so much depth for a lot of these teams, excluding the National Football League, which is a money-making machine, at least currently. But a lot of these Major League Baseball teams, a lot of these NBA, NHL teams are far in the red, and it's going to force, I think, a lot of owners to sell the team within the next 4 to 5 years. And I believe that you will see a story reported by Dave Wakeman by 2025 that because there's a lot of teams in the red right now.
So you're counting the big 4. So Major League Baseball, NHL, NBA, and NFL. Yep. Right. I'm pretty sure the NFL teams I would, if I had to put a bet, there's no way in hell that would happen for them.
NFL no, but Major League Baseball, NHL, NBA, we will see somebody file for bankruptcy. We will see an owner file for bankruptcy before.
Hot takes. I like it, Scott Friedman. So where do people find you, man?
So you guys can find me, follow me on Twitter, Scott Friedman 3, Instagram, sfriedman1900, Google, YouTube. Scott's Takes, subscribe to my channel. You will see fantastic, fun content for everybody. 3 days a week for videos, 7 days a week content. I'm grinding. I'm working hard. I'm persevering. I'm not afraid to call somebody out. So tune in. And I enjoyed our conversation as always, Dave.
Calling people out, that'll be the next round. That'll be round 2 of Scott and Dave on the podcast.
Do it. And the utmost respect in person. So no one's, before we go, no one's had the guts to a big level person hasn't had the guts to challenge my take on an issue. I'm just waiting for that day to come to literally tear me a new one.
I'll tell you, they never do it. Actually, they'll only do it behind your back. That's how it works.
World works. I understand. Yep.
Yeah. No. It's you get people like the people will take shots at you, and then people will never challenge your thing, and then when you're right, they never come back and tell you you're right, Scott. It's just all of
works, unfortunately. Yep.
I was going to say there, and I won't name this person, but this person knows who they are, and this is a friendly story for that person. But we were at a game it's been a while now because we've been in a pandemic for a while. He goes to me, he goes, Dave, you know what? You've always been an asshole, but you know what? You're my asshole, and and that's just sort of how it goes, right? You might be. And this is my advice to you because I'm very proud of what you're doing. I'm really happy to see you start to get traction with Scott's Takes and everything else. And I'll say this so everybody can hear this, but it's like it's very easy to take shots. It's very easy to to say somebody a lot of things. It's not always easy to like share your ideas or share your perspectives or, try to do things that are, create change. Eventually though, if you're consistent, you're going to be wrong. That's just the truth. But you're never right if you don't take a chance, and that's all, that's all I do. That's all you do is try to be thoughtful. I try to be consistent. I never make it personal about anybody. It's because it's never personal. It's always about the work, and I'm as wrong as often as anybody else, and it's tough, but like people they do take shots, but they never take them.
They never take it.
Never head on, Scott. Never head on. Only behind the back, man.
I look forward to the day when somebody challenged me to my face, not behind my back. I know that's the world we live in, but I'm looking forward to the day where somebody goes on Twitter and literally tears me a new one. That's when I'll know I made it, right?
Exactly. Well, yeah, it's usually when you get the emails behind your back, that's when you know you've made it. But Scott, man,
that's it.
Thank you so much for doing this, man.
Thank you, Dave. It was a pleasure, and love what you're doing, and look forward to talking to you again soon.
What did you think of my conversation with Scott? Send me an email. Let me know. It's dave@davewakeman.com. Check out my brand new and improved website. It's davewakeman.com. Make sure you get talking tickets at talkingtickets.substack.com or email me, dave@davewakeman.com. 5 stories each week. 100th episode edition is coming up on Friday. Don't want to miss it. Check out Booking Protect. Like I said at the start, found out a new partner signed on this week and got $16,000 in new revenue. The numbers on refund protection are through the roof right now. Double at least what they were before the pandemic started. So check them out, bookingprotect.com. Make sure you check out the Net Promoter Score worksheet that I created in partnership with my friends at Avintellect. Understand what Net Promoter Score is, why it's important, and get some context. It's a simple worksheet, 3 questions. You can gain incredible customer feedback. You can get that by emailing me, dave@davewakeman.com, and I'll set you up. And finally, check out my friends at ActivityStream. ActivityStream's opening in their first American office, and that means that we are going to have some really fun stuff coming up in the fall as the office gets established. So check them out, activitystream.com. Check out the Activate email marketing platform. And as always, thank you so much for being here. I'm going to try to get back to a more regular schedule now. If you got any thoughts or ideas or suggestions on guests, send them my way, dave@davewakeman.com. The offer still stands, though. If you need somebody to talk to chat with, I know it's still tough for people. I'm here for you. So let me know, okay? And until next time, I'll take it easy. I'll talk to you soon.